with Israel do believe that Israel should exist, that Jews should have a homeland and a place that is deeply tied with our history.
There it is.
People, even if we fundamentally disagree with the Israeli government and its policies. And so to me, and the vast majority of
anyway, we'll talk about the AOC thread that you guys wanted me to cover, which is apparently she had like two people that are openly Zionist talking about anti-Semitism. Thread on AOC's disastrous live stream yesterday on anti-Semitism. The live stream begins with AOC introducing Stacey Burdett and Amy Spitalick, both Zionists, as foremost experts on anti-Semitism, setting the stage for them to define anti-Semitism for everyone. Also notice how AOC hedges to say Israeli government, not Israel, and uses qualifying words as inherently and necessarily. What?
Doing this. In a minute, we're going to be hearing from two of the foremost experts from two of some of the most foremost experts in the country in fighting anti-Semitism in America. And before we get to that panel, though, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this, and most importantly, why we're doing it now. Anti-Semitism, hate, and violence against Jews because of their identity is real, and it is dangerous. It is also important to say here in this moment and during that conversation that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic, and criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic.
Okay. Wait. Okay. What is the fucking...
Also important to say
what's wrong with
in this moment and during that conversation that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic, and criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic. That
Let's continue. I'm sure it gets worse. There's no way that this is the major criticism that people have.
That being true does not mean that we should not recognize when criticism and when that criticism crosses a line into real harms against our Jewish community.
Okay. AOC introduces Amy Spitalick, who's the CEO of JCPA, a lobbying group. More about that later, to talk about supposed anti-Semitism. So first and foremost, okay. To talk about supposed anti-Semitism on the left, Amy says that anti-Semitism on the left is more painful than Charlottesville, that since 10/7 there's been a lot of anti-Semitism in progressive spaces. So this right here is infinitely worse than this. I don't know why Scarlet Red, who's a chatter and also a prolific tweeter, didn't start off with this, because this shit is fucking nutty, okay? Her statements here, however, as the starting point, are not. Okay, this right here, this entire 59-second clip is not bad at all. It's good. It's very good. Okay, she starts off the conversation perfectly fine. That since 10/7, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism in progressive spaces. List of things she says are anti-Semitic while AOC nods along. Celebration of 10/7, embrace of Hamas, chanting for another 10/7, calling for Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth, targeting Jewish institutions, Zionist institutions, exclusion of Zionists from events, BDS banning Hillel on campus. BDS is not anti-Semitic, but beyond that, plenty of these things can be fucking absolutely anti-Semitic. What the fuck are we talking about? Let me go through it. I want to see what she says. Okay. Some of these things are not like the others. Okay. Come on, guys. I think the indecent part about this is to say BDS is anti-Semitic alongside like calling for Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth. Okay.
The stand-ins for Jews. And it's used ultimately to target not just Jews, but so many or cabals as stand-ins for Jews. And it's used ultimately to target not just Jews, but so many other communities to advance dehumanizing policies and to ultimately undercut our democracy, as we'll talk about. What's harder for us as progressives to recognize or understand is when anti-Semitism shows up and is normalized in our own spaces. And I want to be frank here. There is very real anti-Semitism that isn't.
Here's how I would have run this. I would have never fucking invited someone who is even remotely Zionist to a conversation like this. And I would 1000% have the person that would speak on this be someone like a JVP person. You know what I mean? That's it. There are a million anti-Zionist Jews in this fucking country, especially in her district, especially in New York, okay? Anti-Zionist Jews are way more prominent in New York than they are in fucking Los Angeles. And there are plenty of anti-Zionist Jews in Los Angeles as well. But like, why wouldn't you bring up a Jewish Voice for Peace person to speak on these issues who will absolutely fucking cover this with the nuance that it deserves and will not make blanket statements utilizing, you know, the very real way in which people will sometimes absolutely mask criticisms of Israel with actual anti-Semitic sentiment. Okay? That's the real problem here. The real problem here is just simply not having a person, even if it's not JVP, then if not now, exactly. But no, I don't think JVP is too radical for this. I think JVP is perfect for this. Okay? But if not now is another group that is less radical than JVP and still would be better. But if your expectation is that, like, now that she has this person on as the formative expert on anti-Semitism, that she's going to fucking start dunking on her, you're out of your mind.
Is in fact showing up in progressive spaces right now. And it's deeply painful and hurtful to Jews. As has been said, criticism of Israel, Israeli policies and its government, it's not inherently anti-Semitic. And the majority of people, students and others showing up to protest are there to speak out for Palestinian rights, not because they intend to be anti-Semitic. But we've seen the line into direct harm against Jews repeatedly crossed in recent months. And over the last 8 months, in certain ways, for me, it's been almost more personally painful to see what's happening in my own progressive community than, for example, what I saw in Charlottesville, because it's happening in my own community.
Yeah, she's not saying it's worse than Charlottesville, okay? She's not. She's saying that it hurts more to see people that she sees as allies say things that she considers anti-Semitic. Now, obviously, that's wrong. That's still wrong, because the things that she considers to be anti-Semitic, which she will explain in a second, are either cynically or hysterically being attributed to anti-Semitism, when some of the things that she's going to mention, as long as that tweet is true, are not anti-Semitic inherently.
We're seeing this manifest in a number of ways. Some of the obvious ways, or I hope obvious ways. Celebration or denial of the October 7th attack, which, as I said, was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Celebration or embrace of Hamas as a terrorist organization, labeling their actions creative resistance, chanting things like, "We want another October 7th." Eliminationist rhetoric, calling for Israel or Israelis or Jews to be wiped off the face of the earth. Targeting Jews or Jewish institutions here for the actions of the Israeli government. My own synagogue was targeted in the fall.
Okay, none of the things that she mentioned so far is incorrect, for the record. Straight up. Targeting Jewish institutions, specifically because they're Jewish, is anti-Semitic. There was literally a fucking Yiddish learning center or whatever. There was a Yiddish learning center or whatever that was like fucking painted up and shit. They're not wrong. They just didn't happen. No, you are wrong. They do happen. What are you talking about? I need someone to understand something here, okay? Real anti-Semitic acts occur in times of Israel's offensive campaigns in the West. It happens and it increases. The reason why I criticize the ADL isn't just because they cynically weaponize and dilute real anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. It's also because they're supposed to be the people that are actually combating anti-Semitism, but because their major goal is to defend the apartheid, they end up weaponizing anti-Zionism and claiming anti-Zionism as anti-Semitic across the board. However, that doesn't change the reality that there are fucking anti-Semitic incidents that occur in times of Israel's offensive campaigns. This is real. I've mentioned this a million times over. I didn't hear the example you gave. Who did it? I don't know. We don't know who did it. But there are infinite number of fucking Jewish places that get targeted when Israel starts doing Israel shit in Gaza. This is true. Real anti-Semitism does grow in times of Israel's offensive campaigns because Israel presents itself as the Jewish state. Israel claims that their violent actions are inherently being done at the behest of Judaism. This creates a lot of anti-Semitism. This is why we say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and that Israel's and Zionists who marry Judaism with the actions of Israel are actually inherently anti-Semitic and causing for more people to be anti-Semitic in the Western world. Why do you think anti-Zionist Jews routinely say Israel's actions make us less safe in the West? Okay? And no, it's not just people who are fucking Nazis doing this. No, you're wrong. I've also talked about the complicated nature of anti-Semitism before. There are plenty of people who are not fucking die-in-the-wool Nazis who do develop anti-Semitic opinions. Why? Because that's all they see on television. Why? Like, it's perfectly understandable how this kind of anti-Israel sentiment can so quickly turn into anti-Semitism when Israel is demonstrably doing shit that, while also simultaneously claiming that they're doing this for Judaism, garners this kind of negative reaction. Israel is negatively polarizing people against Jewish people. 100%. Do you think that these sentiments are do you think that I express this as like a way to fucking cover my ass? Or do you think I genuinely hold these opinions? That's the real question. You have to recognize this. Which one is currently at its worst right now? Anti-Semitism or Zionism? This is a ridiculous fucking question. Why are we pairing up two different, like, why are we pairing up two different fucking potentially fascist opinions and trying to figure out which level of fascism is worse than the other? What the fuck? That's so insane. Are you saying that, like, oh, well, they're not killing as many anti-Semites aren't killing Jews at the same fucking clip that, like, Zionists are defending the death and destruction of Palestinians? So one is worse than the other right now? Like, is that what you're saying? Because that's a psychotic fucking that's a psychotic assumption. Like, what the fuck are we doing? What kind of conversation are we having here? If you think that that is the conversation we should be having, you're fucking lost in the sauce. Calling for Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth is a really fine line, to be fair. If you hear someone say that, you kind of have to press them to determine if they mean apartheid ethnocide or like nuking the whole land and its people. You could argue Rhodesia was wiped off the face of the earth, for example, but the phrase itself is pretty aggro. Yeah, I understand that. And I do think that she is specifically dancing over that line in a way to say, like, oh, people want the end of Israel. People want Israel to end. And when they say that, they mean they want to kill all the Jews. That's not what people mean when they say that, but it doesn't fucking matter. She's specifically tailoring this in a way that is on that fucking line. But that does not mean that anti-Semitism isn't a real bigotry. That does not mean that anti-Semitism isn't on the fucking rise. Real anti-Semitism, not the fucking bullshit, not the cynical weaponization of anti-Semitism that the Apartheid Defense League routinely fucking applies. Okay? Now, the notion that it's like diehard leftists that are fucking attacking synagogues. The insinuation that like, DSA types are like fucking tagging synagogues is psychotic and wrong. And I think that she is obviously the CEO of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. Like, she is a lobbyist that is very good at her fucking job. So it is, like I said, a moot point having her on to talk about this instead of someone who is both from a Jewish background and also going to talk about this with the nuance that it deserves is already an L. Okay. That's why I said the starting point of this is just fucking completely busted. And AOC is not going to do a great job because the optics would fry her in this situation. What is she supposed to debate this person? No, this should have never happened to begin with. Like, that's my point. So even if she starts off by saying like anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, the fact that she brought a person that is going to, teeter on the edges of saying, well, anti-Zionism might not inherently be anti-Semitism, but in many cases is bad. Okay. It's ironic though, because this is like probably a live stream that she's doing specifically to tell the Democratic Party, like, see, I did what you wanted me to do. And then it's getting a shit ton more play on Twitter in leftist circles, way more than, and has completely escaped the actual target audience for what this live stream was for, and is causing people to fucking freak out. Like, a live stream viewed by like 300 total people is now being blasted. Any anti-Semitic attack could never come from a progressive space. No. Technically, you cannot be progressive if you are anti-Semitic. So yes, the person doing so would not be a progressive person. It goes against progressive principles. Having said that, however, this does not mean that someone who isn't like a member of this community, who's like constantly fucking in tune with like the latest and greatest and what's happening in the world of anti-Semitism and whatnot, like normal people who otherwise consider themselves to be progressive could get swept away with anti-Semitic fucking tendencies. That's all I'm saying. Why am I saying this? Because normally, otherwise progressive people can sometimes find themselves trapped with transphobic opinions. It goes back to the same thing that I was mentioning, which is that we are a byproduct of all of the social conditioning that we see. We respond to stimuli. That's how human beings are. So when you're seeing Israel behaving this way and wrapping their genocidal ambition with the Star of David and masquerading as defenders of Judaism, normal people who otherwise are progressive could absolutely get swept away with anti-Semitic tendencies. Those people can be talked down and easily met at their level, and you can explain to them why their sentiment is wrong. I do it on a daily fucking basis. There's people in here that say some shit from time to time, and as long as they are charitable and genuine in their question that they're asking, I will, try to explain to them that what they're saying is anti-Semitic. But you have to recognize that. You have to understand where this kind of sentiment comes from, okay? Most of the interview was good and informative, but certain parts were very manipulative and bad. They claim that most anti-Zionism and BDS is anti-Semitic at some points. The problem is these two women are not only Zionists, but one is the CEO of a Zionist lobbying group, which lobbied against BDS, and the other is the former VP of government relations for the ADL. Yeah, exactly. These are not people that you should ever have to discuss such a thing if you're a progressive lawmaker. Okay? It's not. Because who's saying it matters in this situation? You could literally have an anti-Zionist Jew say similar things, and it would be framed entirely differently, and it would offer the dignity of the conversation that it deserves, the complexity. Because while the apartheid is not complex, obviously in the Western world, the way we analyze, the way we look at anti-Zionism is always going to be complex. The way we look at, like the way we cover not just Israel's actions, but specifically anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is going to be complex. You have to recognize that there is more nuance to the situation. It's not as black and white. And it also is the reason why I don't engage in black and white thinking when it comes to this sort of situation is specifically because I believe that people can be talked down from certain positions. People can be misguided into thinking anti-Semitic things, for example. This does not mean that they are across the board a bad person, and they can actually change their mind on certain things, especially on this issue, especially if they're otherwise progressive people. Okay?
And I particularly want to take a minute to unpack one major way this is manifesting, because the term Zionist and Zionism is so deeply confusing and so often gets muddied in the public conversation. No two Jewish Americans have the same relationship with Israel. Some have no relationship, but the vast majority of Jewish Americans, about 90% according to recent polls, do have a relationship with Israel, do believe that Israel should exist, that Jews should have a homeland and a place that is deeply tied with our history.
There it is.
People, even if we fundamentally disagree with the Israeli government and its policies. And so to me, and the vast majority of
There it is. Okay, so yeah, every time you fucking criticize Zionists, you're criticizing all Jews. Yeah, you are literally, this person, Amy Spitalick, is literally doing the thing that I was just talking about, which is how Zionists breed anti-Semitic fucking opinions in the Western world. That is inherently an unimaginable, harmful thing. You are willingly associating 90% of Jews with the actions of the state of Israel. Normal people that watch that are going to go, what the fuck? Especially if you have never encountered a Jewish person and only know Jewish people from television, okay? And many people in America have not, okay? Because not everyone in America lives in New York or Los Angeles. So obviously, when you have never fucking encountered a Jewish person, you've never met an anti-Zionist Jewish person, for example, you're going to hear that and go, well, okay, this person literally has Jewish in the name of the fucking like lobbying group that she is the CEO of. She has to be the foremost authority. She's saying 90% of Jews love Israel and associate with Israel and associate with Zionism, which is wrong inherently. Never met a Jewish person? Dog, it ain't a rare Pokemon. Bro, your name is Ohio Riz Sigma, okay? Do you understand? There are 15 million Jews on the planet total. What the fuck are you talking about? There are so many fucking places, including in Ohio, where there are hella people who have never encountered a Jewish person in the wild, okay? This goes for any matter of bigoted opinions. There are people who don't encounter black people in the fucking wild, okay? What the fuck are we talking about in the United States of America? Just generally, if this is supposed to reach and educate people who call themselves anti-Zionist, having an anti-Zionist Jew on is more effective just to disarm people's defenses to this actually important topic. If the purpose of this is to appeal to the Democratic Party or more pro-Israel parts of her constituency, then in general, this was the thing to do. Exactly. That's why she most likely did it.
American Jews, that's what Zionism is, despite how muddied the word has gotten in the public conversation.
Like, she's literally saying, oh, having any association with Israel is Zionism. Like, if you have fucking family members in Israel, that's Zionism. You're a Zionist. That's fucking ridiculous, dude. You are... This, in my mind, this is unironically no different than like a Muslim person in the Western world being like, ISIS defends Islam and it's in the name and it's a good thing. And if you are shitting on ISIS, then you are Islamophobic. It is fucking ridiculous. Okay. She's not saying that. No, she's literally. Some of you are puritanical lunatics. Is she wrong? Most Jews in the U.S. believe Israel should exist. That's not incorrect. Let the woman talk, for fuck's sake. The word has gotten muddy. She's not saying that. That's absurdly uncharitable, Hasan. Dude, come on. She is a PR person for Zionism in Israel. Like, it's not. She's very clearly using real existing anti-Semitism in an argument to make it seem like Zionism, in the most like charitable terms, she's trying to still conflate Zionism with anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
It's a belief that there should be a Jewish homeland. And for me, that goes hand in hand with Palestinian self-determination, 2 states side by side. And so not all anti-Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic, but a litmus test for Jews, 90% of whom have a relationship with Israel, that says you have to leave that relationship at the door if you want to come into these coalitions, that is.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. Hey guys, I'm sorry, but if you want to come into progressive spaces and you literally fucking defend Rhodesia, you're not a progressive. Okay. If you want to come into progressive spaces and all of these people think that like America's war on terror was actually awesome, then you're not a progressive. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, well, what are you talking about? Hey, I'm sorry. I'm doing a bodies and spaces. I need to come to the fucking I need to come to the PSL meeting, but I also think that America's actions globally have been good. I need to come into this fucking progressive space, but also simultaneously I'm defending the apartheid regime of South Africa. I have a connection to it. Sorry. I have a connection to apartheid South Africa. Sorry. It's really fucked up and anti-South African of you it's anti-white behavior. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous assessment to make. Anyway, she's whitewashing Zionism. You can either have a democracy or a theocracy. You can't have both. What the hell does a relationship with Israel mean? That's a great question. That is an intentionally vague way to fucking muddy the waters when you are trying to engage in a defense of Zionism. That's what I'm frustrated with, because a relationship with Israel can mean any number of things. I have a relationship with Israel. I have had Israeli chatters on. I've had Israeli Knesset members on. I have a relationship with Israel. Does that mean I'm pro-Israel or a Zionist? No. It's ridiculous. It is a completely fucking ridiculous and a very intentionally vague way to try to say, like, well, 90% of Jews have a relationship with Israel. Okay. What matters is what percentage of Jews under the age of 35, for example, think that Israel's actions are bad? What percentage of Jews under the age of 35, for example, think that there should be a ceasefire? I have a relationship with Israel. I live there, speak Hebrew not well, and I'm anti-Zionist. Exactly. It is ultimately taking advantage of the complexities of the situation. There are fucking anti-Zionist Jews in Israel. Many of them are in the chat right now. All 7 of them. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, it's so fucking weird. In this context, I think it's pretty clear means has been to Israel or knows people who live in Israel, whether family or friends, which, yeah, I can see 90% of Jews falling in this category. Doesn't mean you support it politically. Exactly. That's why I'm saying it's like very fucking, intentionally vague and being used as a way to defend Zionism. Yeah. Also, technically, 100% of tax-paying Americans have a relationship with Israel. I'm the #1 defender of Israel in this chat with the amount of fucking taxes that I pay, technically.
And we see it in calls to ban or boycott Zionists, like these lists of Jewish authors or artists that are making the round. We're seeing it during Pride Month, where in certain spaces, Jews have been told.
Yeah, no, I think saying Zionist out of pride is perfectly fucking valid. What the fuck do you mean? And also beyond that, saying that like certain artists are Zionists and that you want to boycott them. Yeah, what the fuck? No, that's bullshit. She played fast and loose there and went Zionist means Jew. Look, there's a genuine complicated discussion to have in Jewish communities about the basic nature of authentic modes of Jewish existence in Zionism. This conflict in Jewish identity between the idea of existence in constant exile versus existence in a national land-related context, that might not be inherently Zionist. I struggle with this too. This shit is super complicated and it sucks. She's cynically using it to malicious purposes here. Yeah. No, I that's what I'm saying. I think that like a lot of these institutions unironically take advantage of the complexity of Jewish identity and then simultaneously fucking use it as a forward, as a shield, as a defense mechanism. And that actually that pairing of Zionism and Judaism unironically creates more resentment towards Jews, which is anti-Semitism. It's really not that complicated. I think right wingers just make people see that way. No, it's complicated in the sense that, like, no, of course it's complicated. The history of Judaism, makes it complicated. That's why it's a unique. That's why it's a unique devil to tackle. Okay, it's not as black and white as other forms of racism. It's not as black and white as other forms of it's not as black and white as other forms of bigotry. For sure. Because Jewish history does make it complicated. Jewish history being partnered with the justification for the state of Israel being an ethno-state makes it complicated. It is very cynical, and it's fucked up, and it's gross, and it breeds anti-Semitism, but that doesn't change the reality that, like, the way that people analyze it and the way that people experience it doesn't mean that Hasan blaming Jews for people hating on Jews has got to be the funniest thing. See, this person is fucking absolutely brain broken. Hasan blaming Jews for people hating on Jews has got to be the funniest thing. Did I even for a second say that? No, I didn't. I didn't blame Jews for people hating on Jews. I blamed Israel. Okay? And it's not even just Israel either. Obviously, anti-Semitism has existed for a very long time. Okay? But you tried to make it black and white from the other direction. Obviously, your fucking idiotic sentiment is not going to work in here. This is not a space where you can get away with shit like that. I don't know a single Jew that does not support Israel, Hasan. And chat, you are delusional thinking there's actually big groups of Jews that are anti-Zionist. Yeah, dude, keep defending ISIS at the behest of Islam, dude. Yeah, it'll surely go in your favor. The fuck is this idiotic take? It's also pretty funny that you're coming in here when there's hella Jews in here that are anti-Zionist. So it's funny to come in here. It's like coming into a JVP meeting and being like, no, none of you are Jews. ISIS is not an elected government. Israel is. Yeah, that's not the fucking own that you think it is, big dog. Okay. Oh, they democratically are doing a genocide in an apartheid state, so it's fine. Is not actually going to be as good of a take, as fire of a take. Democracy in that sort is just simply another shield that you're trying to deploy. Okay? Oh, dude, that's sick, man. I'm glad that they are democratically doing an apartheid over there and democratically doing a genocide over there. That's fucking sick, dude. That certainly won't breed the extra resentment that we were just talking about. Honest question, why should I care if Jews want an ethno-state or not? I feel like this is never addressed. Yeah, well, the reason why I don't address it is because I don't think that Jews want an ethno-state. I don't think any group of people are a monolith, okay? No matter how hard an apartheid regime tries to present it as such. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, so if this guy made it seem like if ISIS voted for their leader, it would be fine, which is very cool. Yeah, you know who else was fucking democratically elected? The Nazi party. So I guess that was chill too. What a fucking ridiculous take. Shut the fuck up, dumbass. They can't
show up as their full Jewish selves. We're seeing it in calls to ban Jewish organizations like Hillels from campuses. Even this weekend, and it's one of its most horrific forms, chants like we saw in DC of, quote, kill another Zionist. Frankly, we saw it in some of the responses to this event. The people who are calling me and Stacy, Zionist scum, not a human, evil and shouldn't live, simply because we're here to have a conversation about anti-Semitism. And so when we use
how do you counter people who say anti-Zionist Jews and pro-Palestine protests are being tokenized? I've heard people say it's only like 10% of Jewish people they're being tokenized like black conservatives like Candace Owens. Yeah, it's fucking gross and it's disgusting. Okay? For a multitude of different reasons. One, it's not just 10%. And two, it doesn't matter. Because Candace Owens is defending white supremacy. Okay? A reactionary ideology. Jews who are on the right side of history in terms of Israel's apartheid being considered tokens is ridiculous. Especially because if history does have a slant towards progress, everyone else will, remember their actions very differently in this time and what they said back, what they said now, 20 years down the line. Washed up. That's all. Thanks. Okay. What? While children in the ancient markets of an ever-changing Jerusalem, where the whispers of history intertwine with the vibrant hum of today, Jewish artisans craft tales from a shimmering threads of tradition and innovation, their hands weaving stories that stretch from the Torah to the edges of modernity. While promising a coherence that hovers just beyond immediate grasp as the essence of Jewish life dances perpetually on the brink of revelation, always one mitzvah away from a deeper understanding. What? Jewish artisans craft tales from the shimmering. What? You win a viewer back. I will take the L. Good on you. Okay, I'm sorry. What? I just think you're in a deep echo chamber, brother. Just watching LFS clips and you're just so lost. You're like one of the biggest haters out there, dude. Are you all right? I think this is the guy who we had a conversation about. We had a conversation with a while back that was like, you know what? I'm in a mood today. I started disliking you before I started watching him. Don't really watch him anymore. You comparable to Ben Shapiro, who actually at the end, you helped mold my political views across the years, and I'll give you some credit. It is hard to find a list of shit we don't agree on. I got caught up in your assholeness, which I'm very guilty of. I think he just likes the attention. He's back. I think he just like, it's me trying to stunlock your ass again. Yeah, he's just fucking, I thought he was going to actually have a decent take, but nah, he's just bored.
This term Zionist as a pejorative, when we use it.
This is Western coverage. Anyway, let's get back to this guy.
To call for
this
bans, boycotts, the elimination. It's ultimately calling for the vast majority of Jewish Americans to be banned or boycotted and eliminated. And that is effectively...
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. When I say BDS is good, I mean like, kill all the American Jews. That's insane. It is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy to fucking, to like have to deal with this level of hysteria. Okay. Whether it's valid or not. If it's valid, it's hysterical. If it's cynical, then, it's cynical.
A form of anti-Semitism. And what that does is ultimately divide Jews from the very coalitions, the very spaces we all need to be in right now.
And I think the point that you make too about the muddying.
Why is AOC just chilling? What the fuck is she supposed to do? Is she supposed to be like, you're out of your fucking mind? To the CEO of the Jewish Council of Public Affairs that she has on here to talk about fucking anti-Semitism being on the rise. No, this was already a shit job from the start. Okay.
Of this term and how so many people have
AOC M Ocasio-High.
They engage in different definitions of this.
No, I'm saying she should not have invited them. That's my overarching point.
Term, utilizing it in different ways, and that then creates an opening in a spectrum here.
Exactly.
Amy Spitalick continues that exclusion of Zionists by progressive movements is anti-Semitic and dangerous to democracy. AOC does not push back and instead agrees. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But since she did, the least she could do is push back. You guys don't understand. The reason why she's having this fucking conversation is literally so that, you know, she could be like, no. See, I'm doing the right thing. Please don't yell at me and call me an anti-Semite and dump fucking, I don't know, millions of dollars into any number of different races. She should have never done this.
To divide Jews.
I think that she should have had a seminar on anti-Semitism for sure. I mean, that's perfectly valid. Anti-Semitism is a bigotry. Oftentimes, that bigotry, especially when we're not talking about like Israel's actions, that bigotry oftentimes comes from is a canary in the coal mine for fascism in general. And Palestinian Chai. Yeah. It's just like she should have never done this. Should have never done this.
From the very communities, the very pro-democracy coalitions we need to be in solidarity with right now. If our communities are pit against one another, if the vast majority of American Jews are being told they're unwelcome in progressive spaces because we have a connection to Israel or a relationship with Israel, that doesn't just make Jews isolated, unsafe, it makes all of us unsafe, and we'll never be able to come together to advance the sort of inclusive future we need. Ultimately, our safety is inextricably linked and bound up with one another's and with our democracy. And so as anti-Semitism is normalized in all of these ways, in our politics, in our media, in all of these spaces we've been talking about, it continues to threaten all communities' rights and safety and undercut our democracy. And so too, in sort of a constant feedback loop, is democracy.
Yeah, it's true, dude. If you don't have Zionists in every space, then democracy is under threat.
Right.
AOC asked Stacey Burdett, who's worked with the United States Holocaust Museum that endorses the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and ADL, how to oppose the Netanyahu government without being anti-Semitic. Stacey says that excluding Zionists from space is discrimination in our legal system and normalize the idea of a Jewish ethno-state.
How can someone
I have to pee. Hold on.
Oppose the actions
I'll be back.
of the Netanyahu government while also avoiding anti-Semitism?
Look, if we want to be problem solvers, we have to be able to have respectful, evidence-based conversations that are totally free of identity-based biases. And if you make a judgment or an accusation about Israel that I think is wrong or unfair, I want to challenge you on the merits. I want to challenge your argument on the merits. And I think we can have those conversations. So Israel is a country like ours. It's subject to criticism and protest and tough language that may hurt my ears that people use to hold it accountable. And the parameters around that should be, how would we speak about this country, right? Political protest and criticism are the essence of democracy. And we also need to take care with that expression because we need it for our democracy. I want to just mention a couple of pain points in this moment, because if we can understand the harm some words do to other people, we can be attentive to preventing it. And that's a great beginning that will matter to a lot of people. So I talked about the conspiracy frame. And so whenever we hear about nefarious control behind world events, or now we're talking about the conflict, evil control of government policy by Jewish billionaires or Zionist donors, those are just like the George Soros accusations that Amy described, you know, this evil puppet master, you know, trying to save democracy and support causes he cares about. So if your criticism of Israel is trafficking and stereotypes, you're really in the bigotry zone. I mean, stereotypes kill. That's how the Nazis got the German people to live with this so-called final solution. So we do the work all the time to avoid words that correlate with negative stereotypes. And we need to do that here. Second, you know, empathy and care and inclusion cannot be limited only to Jews who reject Zionism. To me, those are part of my community, friends and colleagues, and progressive Jewish groups are doing more good work than ever fighting anti-Semitism. But still, excluding Jews who believe there should be a Jewish homeland is excluding most Jews for whom it's just a feature of their identity. And that's in our civil rights legal system and our civil.
Yeah. No, definitely. You don't understand. Jews have, I love that This is why I always say Zionism is so anti-Semitic. You don't understand. Inherently, Jews have a bone in their brain that says they have to have an ethno-state that is like literally constantly doing apartheid and killing people. Like, you don't get it. Okay? You don't get it. Like, we just have to have that. So like, it is an intrinsic value to Judaism. Okay? And therefore, if you say that like this opinion is bad and wrong and has no space in like progressive circles, then you're being anti-Semitic. It's an insane it's an insane statement, dude. Like, what the fuck are you saying? What are you saying? What an insane fucking statement to make. This is very uncharitable. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is very normal and boring. Conspiracy control is genuine anti-Semitic dog whistle. She hasn't said anything that bad. She's not wrong. How is she wrong? She just said there are a lot of Jews who believe in an Israeli state. This is very uncharitable. Okay, dude, I don't know if you're like being intentionally obtuse, because you are missing the forest for the fucking trees. I suspect you are being intentionally obtuse, or maybe you are misguided. Okay? It's blood and soil propaganda. Like, here, I'll run it back again.
Second,
so
you know, empathy and care and limited only to Jews who reject Zionism. To me, those are part of my community, friends and colleagues, and progressive Jewish groups are doing more good work than ever fighting anti-Semitism. But still, excluding Jews who believe there should be a Jewish homeland is excluding most Jews for whom it's just a feature of.
Do you understand? Excluding Jews who believe that there should be a Jewish homeland. There's only one fucking place that she's talking about, and that is Israel. And that accompanies all of the actions of Israel. Okay? Intentionally vague ways of defining Israel does not change that reality. Okay? We here in this community, at least I, have never stated that there cannot be some kind of connection to Israel or anything like that. I myself have mentioned that there can be connections to Israel. That does not mean you're inherently a Zionist or whatever. Okay? But it is not a part of someone's identity to be like, no, you don't understand. Like, Rhodesia is my identity. Okay? Or the segregation in the South is my identity. That South African whites want an apartheid. That is a part of the Boer identity. And therefore, those who defend these kinds of unjustifiable constructs, those who believe in these unequal constructs, these incredibly violent, oppressive constructs, have to not be excluded. Otherwise, you are the racist, is ridiculous. And the only way you can't comprehend that, or you can't see that, is if you also personally think that there is not like all that much wrong with it. My uncle was born in Rhodesia, then moved to South Africa, then to Israel. He's a real piece of shit. Yeah, I mean, he's just a apartheid enjoyer, dude. The only reason why people do not view this in the same way as like someone who says Southern pride in the Confederacy is not the same as like being racist or whatever is because most people understand whiteness and the Confederacy is a wrong thing, whereas being Jewish is still a marginalized and protected identity in the Western world for understandable reasons, because anti-Semitism is a real problem, which is why cynically using anti-Semitism as a weapon to shield against criticisms of Israel is insane. How is saying Jewish homeland connected to a brutal apartheid? Those two are different things, no? How is saying Southern pride in the Confederacy is connected to the maintenance and the continuation of slavery and the enslavement of black people? How are these two things the same? Did the Jewish homeland not be created with the purposeful exclusion, systematic exclusion of those who lived there? It's heritage, not hate, brother. That's what it sounds like. Oh, I just want a white homeland. Yeah. It's like saying Lebensraum had nothing to do with Jews or people or Slavs. It was just Nazis that wanted a space to live. Do you get it? What? You act like Japan is great? Why are you acting like apartheid is the same thing as the Confederacy? You act like Japan is great because it's an ethno-state, but turn around to any other example? You have to be trying to debate me at the top of the hour, right? Because I have literally criticized, and I already ran the 3-minute ad break. I've criticized Japan being an ethno-state a million times. The fuck are you talking about? It's like one of their biggest L's. No, I already ran the 3-minute ad break, dummy. 15 minutes ago. Unless you're 43 minutes early to the top of the hour.
Their identity. And that's in our civil rights legal system and our civil society, it's discrimination. And there's a zone in which we don't agree exactly.
It's so funny. It's all, dude, I've heard this kind of insidious liberal Zionist propaganda so many fucking times, dude. It's just like, oh, you don't understand. Israel is a robust democracy where you can criticize Israel, just not like that. Just not like that. It's like, bro, I don't care about like what kind of taxation that the Confederate States were going to implement, okay? Criticism within the acceptable confines of what the Confederates thought was like permissible is not my main point of contention with the Confederacy, okay? It's the maintenance and the preservation of slavery. That is my main point of contention. And with Israel, my main point of contention isn't whether women should be able to read or not, okay? It's the apartheid. That is the big thing that needs to be dismantled first.
Exactly the nature of the overlap between anti-Jewish hate and anti-Israel criticism. We don't have the exact identical frame to characterize it, and Jews disagree on some of these finer points, but we all agree that it's harmful. So let's just call it like eliminationist. Whatever the intent, we're all reading 20 articles a day. It's telling us and teaching us how provocative, scary, and hurtful some language is. Envisioning a world without a Jewish homeland is terrifying for a group of people who've been banished and expelled. And calling every single Jew who yearns for a refuge or a homeland a racist, that causes harm. It's not in service to any future that's...
Yeah, I hate this shit so much, bro. It's like weaponizing the Holocaust to do genocide is so freakish. But it is a foundational plank of Zionism. And, you know, a lot of Zionists do legitimately subscribe to this. It's pretty funny because, like, Nazis literally used to take advantage of liberals' dumbass tendencies of you know, freedom of speech is one of the foundational planks of American democracy. Like, why won't you let me have my free speech? That's literally what fucking Nazis used to use all the goddamn time. And it's so funny to see. It's so funny to see Zionists like very quickly apply that exact same tactic here.
Safe for Israelis and Palestinians, and it undermines our ability to live in the kind of community of support we want and we need.
I'm raging to act like us American Jews are terrified to not have a Jewish homeland as a cover for genocide makes me physically ill. Yeah. True, but the effect of a non-specific Zionist label is an exclusion of Jews and I suppose evangelicals. I think we need to be more specific about what Zionist is. Is it two-state Zionism? That would make Arafat and Fatah head Zionists. Zionism is simply the maintenance, the creation and the maintenance and the continuation of a demographic majority Jewish Israel ethno-state. It is. That's what it started as, and that's it. It is settler colonialism and a justification for said settler colonialist activities. That is precisely the reason why people routinely want to defend that without saying it on such terms will muddy the waters. What? So even non-Israeli Jews are welcome? Well, what? I don't even know what you're trying to say. What the hell is it? Israeli?
Right.
Speaking out against the war in Gaza with a broad brush, it makes it that much harder to effectively call out real anti-Semitism, and instead it just seeks to divide us. At the same time, as we've talked about here, we've seen the line crossed in too many cases in ways that cause direct harm to Jews, and that ultimately threatens all of us. And so for me, the guiding principle for all of this work is to understand that no one's going anywhere. Jews, Arab Americans, Muslim Americans.
Jay Mershon, excluding people for their politics is not discrimination based in civil rights legislation. It's just being mean. The truly ironic thing is that these people would definitely be the first to screech and cry about Trump supporters being allowed in their Moms for Biden book club meeting. It's the same thing ultimately when you boil it down. It's exclusion based on political ideology, nothing to do with religion. Yeah.
Americans here in the
like Zionism, no matter how hard you try, will never be a marginalized identity. It's not. Jews are, Zionism is not. Zionism is the majority of evangelical Christians in this country. They're evangelical Zionists. There are more evangelical Zionists in this country than there are Jews on the planet, okay? Anti-Zionist, Zionist, whatever. Do you have a professional chef? Yes. Her name is my mom.
The United States, Israelis and Palestinians in the region, all of our futures are inextricably bound up with one another. And in fact, the only future in which I'm safe as a Jewish American woman is one in which my Arab American, Muslim, Black, immigrant, LGBTQ neighbors are safe, and vice versa. And so too is the only future in which Israel and the Israeli people are truly safe and finally secure, one in which Palestinian children and all people are finally safe and free. And so that requires us to do the hard work to understand how in disagreeing over policies and protesting vehemently, we don't cross that line into harm, into eliminationist rhetoric, into anti-Semitism, and that we also not allow legitimate concerns and fears about anti-Semitism to be exploited to advance a broader extremist agenda that seeks to pit our communities against one another and undermine our fundamental democracy and our liberal values.
Yeah, the only world where Jews are safe is when Jews' neighbors are safe, except, you know, you must be really critical of Israel then. You must be a anti-Zionist, actually. I can't believe how she just dropped that in this conversation. A commonly shared opinion amongst anti-Zionists is literally what she just said. Look, there were early Zionism adjacent Jews who pushed for a Jewish homeland as a genuinely binational and egalitarian idea. Buber, Arendt, Brit Shalom. Think what you may of them. At the same time, I'm also not so fucking delusional. Think some imaginary alternate essence of Zionism means shit when the way Zionism is manifested for 100 plus years has been ethno-nationalism and colonialism. Existence precedes essence. If Zionism is always manifested like this, then this is Zionism. Yes. Exactly. Which is why I always fucking talk about Einstein. Einstein's sentiment now would be literally called token Jew by Zionists. Einstein, who once was propped up to be the president of Israel. Okay, that Einstein, Albert motherfucking Einstein, literally was saying, like, you can't do a fucking Jewish homeland, guys. You can't do that. We have to live with our Arab neighbors. What the fuck are you doing? You are doing Nazi shit. Calling out the early Haganah, Lehi, and Irgun brigades as terrorists, saying you're being a fascist, bro. Chill with this fucking fascism. What the fuck is that about? They literally, Einstein's sentiment now, if expressed by an American Jew in 2024, is seen as like you're being tokenized. Einstein had a dream for a Jewish safe land. He did not support the ways in which Zionists wanted to achieve it. Exactly. Anyway.
And I mean, that's so well said. And I think it also cuts to a different skill that we have, which is allyship. And that this isn't just like a term that is used in some saccharine way, but that it is a discipline and a practice. I am a woman of color. You are a Jewish woman. Our destinies are bound up. Our protection is bound up in one another. And it's so important that we stand up and defend each other. So, Amy, to you, what does allyship look like to you in this moment? And what are the stakes for our democracy in that allyship right now?
Look, there's so much that is complicated.
I'm sorry, but this is fucking ridiculous. Like, we are in the middle of a genocide, which she correctly has called a genocide. Like, that doesn't mean you should let anti-Semitism run wild, as I am very careful about that sort of thing and will fucking stamp it anywhere I see it. Having said that, however, you are not going to catch me like doing PR for Zionists. Like, that's ridiculous. We're going to defend the identity of Judaism by allowing people to cynically tie it back to an apartheid, a racist apartheid ethno-state doing a genocide. And then what? Like, expect people not to fucking listen to that? Expect people not to go, well, what the fuck? What am I supposed to think then? Like, what? You were trying to appeal to the idea that some amount of Jews globally believe Zionism is in a fascist ethno-state. Yes, that's due to the propaganda. You can't just say that at some point. No, most people that believe in the existence of a Jewish homeland don't recognize that that Jewish homeland is placed on top of an indigenous population that is being fucking harmed right now. That doesn't mean that they're correct, or that doesn't mean that I should reflect my criticism of such, my criticism of people who believe that in a way where I'm also doing PR for the way that Zionists want me to talk about the issue. Like, that's crazy. That's why I say it is no different than being like, listen, you have to fucking, you can't be talking about white supremacy, Hasan. That's going to offend white people. That's going to offend white people's sensibilities. Like, you can't do that. Why don't you give up this fucking conversation? Like, see, you're hurting people's feelings. You're hurting white people's feelings when you talk about how the Great Replacement is not real, or how are you going to do a white genocide? Like, yeah, those people are hysterical. What do you want me to do? And they're living in a fucking false reality. I can't abide by the hysterics of an entire group of people, and it's not an entire, it's not even like all Jews who believe this anyway, but like regardless, even if it was, I wouldn't still fucking do it. What people want Zionism to mean to them, if it doesn't match up with what Zionism is, like the reality is, then, you know, we can't have this conversation about what their hypothetical Zionism is, because that's not what it is. You could say, well, Zionism to me means like a secular nation state for everyone living there. Right? Great. But that's not what Zionism is. That's, at that point, that's anti-Zionism.
About this, but for me, this part shouldn't be complicated, right? Being an ally to the Jewish community right now doesn't mean that we're asking you to put an Israeli flag on your front door or support every action of the Israeli government. It means recognizing the very real Jewish pain.
Just the ones that I want you to shut the fuck up about. That, you know, you don't have to put an Israeli flag on your door, but you need to shut the fuck up about this like apartheid genocide shit.
And grief that our community is experiencing following the deadliest day for our people since the Holocaust. Pain and grief that we're still in because there are hostages that remain, because the war is ongoing. It means calling for the hostages to be released alongside the other policy changes that you want to see, recognizing that.
That's so funny. I would love to hear what she has to say about Israel being an apartheid. Like, do you agree that Israel's an apartheid? Do you agree with the Human Rights Watch, Israeli organization B'Tselem, and Amnesty International that Israel's an apartheid? It's that simple. I would just love to hear what you have to say. It is such an easy fucking conversation finisher. Just ask that. Because if you don't, then, you know, we're on entirely different planets. You are not living on planet Earth.
What happened on October 7th was heinous and unacceptable, even as you also oppose Israel's actions in Gaza or the Netanyahu government, or believe that this war needs to end. And so too does the Jewish community need to lean into allyship.
Like,